Welcome back, future STEMers. We are moving on today with step 2 of how to build a model rocket from scratch. Now, we left off with our body tube being rolled onto the dowel, the birch dowel, and we let that dry overnight. We placed the tape on there so that it would keep the seam in place, and we can take that off right now and see how our tube looks. So by leaving it overnight, you really give it a chance to dry into a cylinder, which is what you want. So now you have your cylindrical body tube. Okay, so step 2 of building the model rocket is working with your fins. So you want to be able to attach fins to your rocket. I have a couple of templates here that I pre-made. These were made from a very thin cardboard, which you can actually use as the fin. Another popular method of making fins is to use balsa wood. So this is 1/8 inch thick balsa wood. So when you go and do this with the balsa wood, you really want to be careful in doing this when you're cutting out the shape of the fin, because you have to use an X-Acto blade. So I'm going to quickly show you how to do one, and we'll move on from there. So we have our template, and on the template I have drawn some lines. Those lines kind of represent the wood grain in the balsa wood, and you want to be very careful with how you position the wood grain, and I'll explain that in a moment. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this on here, and I'm going to try to get the wood grain moving toward the edge that I'm going to glue onto the rocket, okay, which is this edge here. And that's about as close as I can get it. So let me draw my lines and make my cut. You can actually use this if you wanted to help guide the blade. In fact, let me do that. So here's my X-Acto blade, and when you're using the X-Acto blade, you really want to be aware of where your left hand is if you're righty, because your left hand does the work of holding down the material, and you never really want to be cutting toward your hand when you make this cut. You want to be cutting away from your hand so that if the knife slips forward or backward, it doesn't cut your left hand. And of course, if you're a lefty, the opposite is true. Now, the other thing I have is something to protect the table underneath so that I do not cut through the table. Notice that it took me about 3 or 4 tries to cut that. I'm not pressing down all the way when I do this. I'm just pressing down lightly so that I make a shallow cut, and then I make another shallow cut, and then I make the cut that goes all the way through. So that took about 3 tries. I keep switching my hand position so that I do not slip and cut the hand that's holding the template. And then I have one more cut to make, and again I'm switching my hand position. I do not try to cut all the way through, although that one cut pretty quickly. So then you can wind up with your balsa wood fin. Alright, and this is going to be glued on to our rocket, like that. And in the next video I'll show you how to use a special jig to attach your fins. So tune in again in a day or so for step 3 of building a model rocket on STEM Your Future. Please subscribe.